Hello Year 1, happy Monday! I hope you've all had a lovely weekend, you've had a nice rest after all of your hard work last week and you are ready for another super week of learning. So this week, if you have the Year 2 maths booklet, you are going to be working with me, okay? So if you have the Year 2 maths booklet, we are going to get going today and we are going to be working on page number 17, okay? Now, thank you very much for listening really carefully to my videos last week and only completing the sections of the pages that I told you to, which is brilliant because we had a super week of division and now we are ready to move on to fractions. So thank you very much for listening as well. Okay, so today is Monday the 8th of February and we're going to warm up our maths brains, and to do that I've chosen two very special word problems from two very special children. And if you can remember last week, one of my challenges was for you to write me your very own division word problem, and I didn't have one person complete the challenge, I had two. And Sam, today we are going to solve your problem as our warm-up as a class. Now I've already had a go, so I do know the answer, but I thought what might be quite nice is for all of your friends to have a go too. So let's read Sam's word problem together. I have £100 that needs to be shared between me and Fred. Wow. So get your whiteboard and get your whiteboard pen, pause the board if you need to, and have a go at turning the word problem into a number problem and then solving it, okay? And then when you come back, we will do it all together. So pause, read the number problem and have a go and see if we can blow Sam's socks off. Excellent. So let's see then how we can turn it into a number sentence. Now we know what to do. We need to look for the key information. You are right. Well done, Year 1. So I have £100. So I know I need to start with the number 100. And then it says that needs to be shared. So I know I'm dividing because I'm sharing, so I can put my division sign there, between me and Fred. So how many people do we need to share the £100 into? 1, because we've got Sam, and 2, because we've got Fred. So we need to share it between 2. Now, can you remember my special trick from last week? What did we say we could do? You're right, cover up a 0. So, if we do 10 divided by 2, and remember, we know this off the top of our head, don't we? Because we have 10 and we're going to share it into 2 equally. So we're finding, remember, half, because when we divide by 2, we find half. So half of 10 is 5. Brilliant. Now, what was my special trick? If we've found half of 10 and we know that's 5, we must remember we need to turn it back into a tens number. We need to turn it into a multiple of 10. So we need to times it by 10 and add our 0 back on, which means that 100 divided by 2 must be 50. And we've added our 0 back on from the 5. Let me know if you got that when you solved that problem on your own. Get your adult to take a picture, and I would really like to see if we solved Sam's problem independently. So thank you very much, Sam. You're definitely warming our brains up, and a big thumbs up from me. I loved that problem, so well done. So moving on then to our second warm-up, we have got Alexa's word problem. And Alexa's word problem, read it with me. There are 50 people at a party and each table has 5 seats. How many tables do we need? So thinking now, pause the board, take out the information, turn it into a number sentence and see if you can solve the problem. Thinking about what method you might use. I think there's a really easy method, thinking back to last week, counting in fives, that will help you solve this problem today. So pause, have a go, and then come back. Super. So let's see now if what you've got on your whiteboard is what we're going to do together. So there are 50 people. So I know straight away there's my first piece of information. And I'm going to write that here. 50. And I need to divide it by how many? How many? 5. Because there are 5 seats at each table. So if I make sure that my 50 people each sit at a table for 5 seats each, my answer is going to tell me how many tables I need. So what could I do to find my answer? Could I get 50 objects and put them in 2 groups of 5? I could, couldn't I? But that would take a very long time. What might you have done to find the answer already? I hope you've done this at home. That's right, count in 5s until we get to 50. Let's do it together. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. So I've counted in 5s to 50. And how many 5s did I need? 10. So I know that 50 divided by 5 equals 10. And that means, Alexa, we need 10 tables to solve your problem. I love that problem, and I'm sure you all did at home, so a big thumbs up to you, Alexa, as well. You and Sam have helped us to warm our brains up today, so thank you. So now we are all warmed up, we are going to start by having a look at our learning question for today. And our learning question says, can I begin to solve problems using, and there is the word that we started to look at on Friday, fractions. And in my thought bubble, I just want us to have a think about now, what can we remember about fractions? So on Friday, we looked at this fraction, didn't we? So this is your clue. Pause the board and talk to your adult at home now and tell them what you can remember about the word fractions. What does it mean? Don't worry if you don't know everything, because we're going to go through it all today, but you might remember something from Friday. Brilliant. I hope you've had a good chat with your adult. Now let's see what's under my 2 boxes and see if that helps us to remember anything. So we know that a half means good, divided by 2. And we know that divided by 2 means to share. Brilliant. And we know that we must share equally as well, don't we? So let's see. What do you say? So number 1, we were right. A fraction is sharing into parts. Brilliant. And here it says, a fraction is part of a whole number represented into equal parts. So a fraction is when we take one whole item or one whole number and we are going to chop it up into equal sections. So like we do when we are dividing into equal groups, we are going to do the same, but we are going to turn it into a fraction. Okay, so let's have a look a little bit further about what a fraction is. Now we've seen this fraction before, we saw it on Friday, and we know that this fraction means 1/2, doesn't it? It means we are finding 1/2, which means we are sharing between 2. Now, I'm going to teach you a little bit of something else to help you remember 2 special things about a fraction. You will see that there are 2 arrows here. The first arrow is the top number of our fraction. The number that sits above the line. So this is the line here. The number that sits on top of the line is called the numerator. Numerator. Can you say that with me? Numerator. Okay? And the number that sits underneath the line, so the bottom number of our fraction, is called the denominator. Denominator. Okay? Say that one with me. Denominator. Now, to help you remember the numerator and the denominator, we are going to always say numerator in a high voice because it's the number that's above, isn't it? It's above the line. So this is the numerator. And the bottom number, because it's low, it's below the line, is the denominator. Is that funny? Can you say it with me? So we've got numerator, denominator, numerator, denominator. Very good. I hope this is waking your adults up on a Monday morning, because it's certainly waking Miss James up. So we've got our numerator, and we know that the numerator is the top number, and that's why we say it in a high-pitched tone, because it's the top. And the denominator is the bottom number, so it's the denominator, remember? Now let's have a think about what they mean. We know their names now, but we need to think about what they represent. So what do they mean? So the numerator, put this over here, the numerator is the number of parts that we have or that we need, okay? And the denominator is the amount of equal parts we have to make the whole number, okay? So this number here tells us that 2 parts make up the whole number. And this number at the top tells us we need to find 1 part. So a half tells us that we are finding 1 part out of 2 parts. Okay? And we know that because if we find half of something, we are finding 1 part out of the group, aren't we? We are taking 1 equal part away. Okay? So let's see then what that looks like in a shape. So now we are going to find 1/2 of the circle. But first we must make sure that the circle is represented by 2 parts. Okay? So I'm going to draw a line now which will show us exactly 1/2 of the circle. So we need to make sure first that we've got 2 parts. So let me find the middle. There we are. We need to make sure my line is straight. I'm going to double check. I need to make sure it's straight and I need to make sure it's in the middle. Okay? So I now have 2 parts to my shape. So I know that I have made sure that this section of my fraction is correct. Okay? So I have 2 parts, but remember a half is asking me to find 1 part out of the 2. So if I need to find 1/2, I know that this here is going to be half, don't I? Okay? And we can colour that in. So if I'm finding 1 part of 2, I've found half. Okay? So I would now like you to get your whiteboard and your pen, and we are going to find half of these 3 shapes. So on your whiteboard at home, I would like you to draw a square, I would like you to draw a semicircle, and I would like you to draw a triangle, okay? And then you are going to find me and colour me in 1/2 of each of these shapes. And remember, to do that, we need to find the middle. So we need to find one. We need to divide it into 2 parts first. So we know we've got 2 parts, making sure it's in the middle. And then you're going to colour in 1/2, okay? And when you've found 1/2 of each of these 3 shapes, I would like your adult to take a picture of your whiteboard and send that to me, okay? So I want to see you finding 1/2 before we move on. Excellent job. So now we've found 1/2, year 1, we're going to have a look at another fraction. Now you can see here, this fraction shows us that we have got 1 on our numerator and the number 4 in our denominator. Okay, so remember, this is a recap now. What is the numerator going to tell us? Let's think, let's take it away. Can we remember? The numerator tells you how many parts we have or we need to find. So it's asking us to find 1 part out of 4. And the denominator tells us that we have the amount of equal parts that we have to make the whole is 4. So we know that we need to make sure there are 4 equal parts, and then we need to find 1. We are finding 1/4. Okay? So to find 1/4, we need to find 1 part out of 4. And you can write that down to make sure that we know now 1/2 is 1 and 2, and 1/4 is 1 out of 4. Brilliant. So moving on then now, we are going to go back to our circle, and this time we are going to find 1/4. So how many equal parts do I need to make sure I have in my circle? Thinking about the denominator. 4. Well done. So I'm going to make sure that my circle has 4 equal parts before I find my 1 out of those, okay? So back to the middle, making sure that we're nice and even. Okay. So if I found 2, I know that's 1/2, don't I? How am I going to make sure that I split the rest of the shape equally so I have 4 parts? Can it be here? 1, 2, 3. That's not going to work, is it? Nope. So I know I can't do another line like that. What way might I need to make sure that my line goes? Well done. It must be horizontal, mustn't it? Brilliant. So now let's check. I've got 1. Oh, that's moving my circle. Let's make sure it's nice and even still. Go back to my pen. There we are. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. So this section, I know I've done right. Now what is my fraction asking me to find? 1/4, which means 1 part out of 4. So now I can colour in 1 part out of 4. And this section here that we have coloured in would be our 1/4. So this is 1/4 here that we've found. Super. So let's go then to the next slide. And I would like you to draw these 2 shapes on your whiteboard. And again, you are going to find me this time 1/4 of both of these shapes. So we have here a square. We know this one's a square. How many sides has this shape got? What shape have I got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have an octagon, and this is a challenge for you, but I want to see if you can find me a quarter of an octagon, okay? So pause the board and have a go at these two shapes before we move on again. Brilliant, well done. I can't wait to see that. Now the last slide that we are going to learn about today, the last fraction, is 1 out of 3. And when we have 1 out of 3, it is also known as 1/3. So we've had 1/2, we've had 1/4, and now we've got 1/3. Okay? So remember, let's just recap again. What does our numerator mean? Numerator! And what does it mean? It's on the top. And it tells us how many parts we need. Well done. Let's double check to make sure that we are correct. Double check our learning. Excellent. The number of parts we have or we need. Okay? Now, let's do our denominator voice. Denominator. And what does it mean? How many parts make up the whole number? Well done. Okay. So to find 1/3, we need to find 1 part out of 3. Well done. This is tricky learning and you are doing an excellent job, year 1. So 1 part out of 3. So let's have a look then at how we find a third. And we're going to find a third out of this shape today. Now, with my third, I need to make sure that I have got even parts, don't I? And sometimes, like when we are dividing, you can't always divide numbers by 3 equally. And that's the same with shapes. Sometimes you can't divide into a fraction. You can't find 3 equal parts of some shapes, okay? Just like you can't find 3 equal parts of some numbers. So there are shapes that it will work with and shapes that it won't. And as you trial and error, so as you practice, you will find those out. So let's go back then to our board and we need to find 3 equal parts first. Okay. So I have 1, 2, 3 parts. So I can make sure that I've completed the bottom half, the denominator of our fraction. I've got 3 sections. But I only need to find 1, so what do I need to do? Brilliant, I need to colour it in, don't I? So 1/3 of the shape is coloured in now. I've coloured in 1 out of 3. Okay? So now, let's go again, and you are going to find 1/3 of these 2 shapes. Okay? So you've got a long rectangle, and then you've got a tall, skinny tower rectangle. Okay, so have a go at finding 1/3 of these shapes, and remember to get your adult to take a picture of your learning so I can see how we are finding 1/3. And you will see here, I've made you a little example. 1/3, when you break it up, you can still see that we have 3 equal parts, okay? Putting them back together and taking 1 away, we would have 1/3, okay? Now, normally year 1, when we start fractions, we would have a super duper lesson where we would be maybe baking cakes and sharing them and finding half and finding quarters and sharing them with your friends in the classroom. We might even make a pizza and share that into half, into quarters and to thirds with our friends in our classroom. And we can't do that. And that makes me a little bit sad. But what I would love for you to do over the weekend at home is see if you could find real objects to share into fractions to show me, so that I know that you can use real objects as well as drawing them, okay? So thinking about, you might bake a cake at the weekend, or you might have a pizza as a treat. Think about how you could find half. Think about how you could, if there are 4 of you in your family, If you've got mum, dad and 2 brothers, think about how you could share it into quarters. And I would love to see your learning, Year 1, if you have anything at home that you can show me practically, so with something real, how you found half and how you found a quarter. I would love to see that, okay? Because everything works even better with maths if we can find a practical way to show and to help us know and understand, okay? So this is the weekend challenge for today's learning. I would like you to have a really good go and see if you can find anything at home that you can share, okay, into half or into quarters or into a third. So now I've asked you to do that, we're going to have a look at today's sheet in our workbook. And we are working on page number 17. Now you have today 3 questions. And each of the questions that you have today, we have just done together. So we know what the numerator and the denominator are, and we know how to find sections, so pieces of a shape, okay? And remember, those sections or pieces of a shape are called fractions. So have a really good go at page number 17 and don't forget to send me your learning. But today the most important part is sending me your learning of half of a shape, a quarter of a shape and a third of a shape, so I can see how we are finding the numerator and the denominator. And if you want to put an extra special smile on my face, I would love a video of you doing your numerator and your denominator to help Miss James remember too, okay? So have a really good go, have a brilliant Monday, and I will see you tomorrow.